Good morning. It is 9:40 a.m. on Sunday, September 11th, 2016. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. So today is the 15th anniversary of 9/11, which, I mean, honestly, I'm not 100% sure why I bring it up because I'm not planning to really talk extensively about it, except to maybe just note my awareness of the day. But the reason I'm not planning to talk about it is because today is Sunday, so it is time for the third installment of my Avatar: The Last Airbender rewatch, which I'm going to stick to. So today it is time for Season 1, Episode 3, The Southern Air Temple. So this is the first episode to kind of move us into the new status quo for the season, which is we've got Katara, Aang, and Sokka traveling around trying to find out more about Aang's past and what needs to happen next. Meanwhile, Zuko and Iroh are following after and navigating their own hurdles. So with the setup that we got in episodes 1 and 2, now it's like, okay, so we've established what at least the initial pattern is going to be here, and now let's follow through. One of the things, though, that is really cool about this show is the way that it maintains a really significant continuity, and it doesn't just become like a formula. For example, we note the beat in here where apparently Aang mistook some of Sokka's blubbered whale jerky, seal jerky. I think it was seal jerky. Blubbered seal jerky is what he said, and thought it was fire starter material. And so basically they are short on food. And what's interesting about that is just, it's not so much interesting in this episode as much as a thing to watch as the show progresses, because it keeps an eye on what they have and what they don't. And it makes that relevant. So like one thing that you'll see, this is jumping ahead just a little bit, but there will be a point where there's an episode where they have a lot of their stuff get washed away from them in a river. And then the show remembers that happened, in the sense that now they don't have their stuff and they have to make do and get new stuff. And it's a thing. But in any case, we have in this episode two primary threads that we're following. We have Aang, Katara, and Sokka finding the Southern Air Temple, which is the title of the episode, of course, to have Aang explore for himself the consequences of his having been missing for 100 years. And then we also have Zuko and Iroh resupplying, getting their ship repaired after crashing it into an iceberg last time. And both stories raise the stakes in their own way. Let's start with Zuko and Iroh. So they come into camp and then they meet Commander Zhao, who is apparently kind of like a fleet admiral, in the sense that he controls a whole bunch of different ships. And he is just immediately suspicious about this Zuko's story about how the ship was damaged. This guy is clearly, in terms of practical considerations, way more important than the banished prince, and makes sure everybody knows it, is that he is like actively in charge of the fleet. And so to the extent that the Fire Lord, Zuko's father, is actually interested in finding the Avatar, we see it's because they believe that the Avatar is literally the only force in the world that could be a threat to them. And so when Commander Zhao becomes a little suspicious that Zuko may have actually found something, he he makes it his business to find out, which you can interpret in two different ways that I think are both real. And it's not just two different interpretations. I think it's two separate but equally relevant motivations leading to the same conclusion for him, which is that he needs to involve himself. So he obviously wants to really serve the Fire Lord and find the Avatar if it can be found, if the Avatar can be found. But he also wants to achieve the glory for himself. He could care less if Zuko successfully finds the Avatar and gets restored to his position. In fact, he actually tells Zuko at one point, if your father really wanted you back, he wouldn't really make you go on this goose chase for all this time. He sent you on a mission he didn't think you'd ever complete. And, sure, if you completed it, that would be one thing. But if you completed it, he still wouldn't want you back because he doesn't like you. And he also makes the kind of valid point, which is that if, from the Fire Nation's perspective, if the Avatar really is back and he's as dangerous as they believe he is, leaving that quest to just one ship under Zuko's command is kind of dumb. Like, if they're trying to chase down this flying bison that can go anywhere and it has this incredibly powerful Avatar on it, why wouldn't they want the whole fleet to be after him? It makes sense, except that we don't like Zhao because he's a jerk about it. He invites Iroh and Zuko for tea and then interrogates their crew while they're drinking tea with him. Finds out about their encounter with the Avatar and basically planning to just take over the whole thing and cut Zuko out. Zuko's not going to have that, and so he challenges Commander Zhao to a duel, and we are definitely given clues to suggest that the Zuko's scar on his eye was obtained at the time of when he was banished, doing a similar duel with someone else. And so it's kind of ominous in that sense. And it's also set up here that Commander Zhao is going to be he's a much more advanced firebender than Zuko is. Zuko's been training under Iroh, and we don't know yet how much that means, but it's set up that Zhao is really tough. So they have their duel, and it establishes Zhao as a formidable opponent, but then it's through his own force of will and bits of wisdom gleaned from Iroh's teaching that Zuko does manage to defeat Commander Zhao. But it's an interesting nuance that, as mad as he is, even though it's expected that he kills Zhao after defeating him in this duel, he doesn't, and he doesn't even give him a scar or anything. Like when he threatened him to the duel, he actually says, "How would you like a scar of your own?" But he doesn't. He doesn't scar him at all, and I think it's interesting and mature on the part of Zuko to recognize that as much as he dislikes Commander Zhao, that this is like a commander in his father's navy, and it's not to the Fire Nation's best interest to lose their commander in that way. And also just because it's kind of like, I proved my point. I don't need to kill you or maim you. But of course, because Zhao is he's the bad guy to the bad guy, so to speak, tries to do a sucker burn on Zuko. And this is where we see Iroh jumping in as being badass again. He stops Zhao and basically says, even in exile, my nephew is more honorable than you. And that's pretty cool. My webcam is doing something where it goes not responding, and I'm hoping that this is not losing significant chunks of my video here. I don't know why it does this. It's infuriating. Anyway, hopefully I just have to proceed and hope that it's working. So in the meantime, we have the other plot thread where they reach the air temple, and Aang is so sure that they're hard enough to reach that surely there must be some airbenders still there. And we see some flashbacks of his life there, and Monk Gyatso, who was his father figure. And we learned some things about his life before getting frozen, in the sense that it seems like it was very happy, but not entirely carefree, because for reasons that are not specified, he was told that he was the Avatar 4 years earlier than what is apparently the standard, which would be 16. So why was he told earlier? We don't know. But it's also established that there are things that they won't tell him yet because they don't think he's ready. And we see even in these flashbacks, Aang is feeling some ambivalence about this. Whether it's insecurity about his own ability to be the Avatar, or not wanting the responsibility. It's not 100% clear, but he's definitely struggling with it, which, we believe probably culminates in his running away and accidentally getting frozen. But unfortunately, even though Sokka and Katara kind of are trying to prepare him for the likely scenario here and to soften the blow as much as they can, what they of course discover is that yes, the Fire Nation did make it to the temple, and everybody that Aang ever knew, including Monk Gyatso, is dead, killed by a Fire Nation attack. And it must have happened years and years and years ago. And it's very traumatic for Aang. And he enters the Avatar state again, which we see as not necessarily just tied to physical danger, but to Aang's emotional state. And ultimately, what it takes to calm him down is Katara talking to him and saying, you're not alone, though. We're your new family, so, please calm down and don't blow us off the mountain here. But one of the other things that's interesting in terms of the world building we get in this is we see inside the sanctuary of the temple, first of all, a cool airbending lock, but also we see now the dozens and dozens of statues representing Aang's past lives as previous incarnations of the Avatar, and the cycle that, it goes, there's an airbender, firebender, earthbender, waterbender, and so he's born into a different tribe, so to speak, each time, and that's interesting. And we see all the different statues, but there's definitely this implication he's expecting. He's supposed to be finding out something about his nature, and he doesn't know what it is, or whether he can still find it out with all the airbenders dead. But then when he enters the Avatar state, we see that resonates very powerfully with the temple. And then we see that all over the world, all the other Avatar temples also kind of activate and light up, which means that the entire world now knows that the Avatar has returned. In the Earth Nation, the Earth Kingdom rather, the water tribes of the North Pole, because we don't see any temples at the South Pole where Katara and Sokka came from. But and then, of course, in the Fire Nation. So that means now, for sure, both allies and enemies alike know that the Avatar is back. The secret is out. So the stakes get higher. Now, there's going to be even more pressure, but also potentially new allies. And of course, they meet Momo the lemur, who mostly is just cute, but also we see there might be something a little bit more to this cute little critter. Not just the fact that he brings Sokka food, by the end, but he also seems to show up and lead Aang to where he needs to be. So we don't know if there's maybe some greater fate guiding things. But they bring him along just because Momo the lemur, Appa the flying bison, and Aang the last airbender are basically kind of the last living remnants of that culture. And so they decide, let's stick together. All right, so that's episode 3. We're on our way. All right, I will talk to you guys tomorrow for 5 more minutes.